Forward with the resistance, forward.
Forward.
Forward with the resistance, forward.
Forward.
I will have a few remarks as the vice chairperson of the Communist Party of Kenya, because today is a historic moment, and it is not a historic moment for the oppressor, but it is an historic moment for the oppressed. Today, as we join hands with our brothers and sisters and sister organization from what we call the left, what Dictator Moi banned in 1980s, today we can stand up as Communist Party of Kenya, and we call ourselves the left political movement because of the sacrifices that people made before us. And for that reason, we want to remind the oppressors today, the dictatorship of the status quo, that the people here are willing to sacrifice just like our forebears did for the total liberation of this country. In that note, we declare the march for the fourth liberation that will take a political character of the left, a political character of resisting capitalism, and definitely building towards socialism. Now, if we talk about Sabasaba Day, what I would want to remind the Kenyan people that anything that the Kenyan masses have won in this country has not been given to them. They have always fought. You have covered, the members of the Fourth Estate and the press definitely have covered a lot of state brutality in this country. And now we have seen that the opposition and the government of the day are in deep marriage, the marriage of loot. They are trying to dance over the poor Kenyan people. And we are saying that power actually hates vacuum. So the fourth liberation movement starts today with the political organizations of the left, the Greens and the Reds, and also the political movements that always continue to defend this civic space. So in that moment, that is our reconnaissance today, to try and come and remind Kenyans wherever they are that if you don't resist, then mtaona hawa watu kwa TV, you know, the thieves, they sit down and wonder now the thieves are in power. The thieves are in power because the good people do not want to struggle. So the good people must stand up to defend this country. A few things that I would like to highlight today, and just about 4 comrades. So it will take me about 5 minutes to conclude this. One of the most important things in Kenya today is the propaganda against the poor people. I wanted to highlight that because now I have seen young people, they are being told that they lack jobs, that they should find jobs for themselves, that the politicians that are talking about young people to find jobs for themselves do not have jobs. They actually need to be members of parliament, they need to be MCAs to have jobs. But they're telling youths that have gone to school to find jobs. Our main program today is to tell them that even though the youth can start all these petty businesses around, of selling njugu, of doing everything else, they will continue to be poor unless the industrialization process of our country starts. And the Jubilee administration has never moved from the campaign rhetoric. You know, at least when we remember Kibaki, there was a blueprint. But the Jubilee administration now has never moved from the campaign rhetoric of just lying to the Kenyan people to get the vote. So the second is that the young people cannot plead with a neo-colonial state to give them jobs. They should organize themselves and resist the government of the day, to demand services. Now they are being imprisoned by loans. Remember, an education system, I have seen my sister and my brother here from the universities. They are talking about a university that have since been privatized. They call it public universities if you go to the University of Nairobi, but the university that is geared towards raising profits. Where when you go to the university, you realize that the so-called competitive courses are being given to the rich people. So somebody, if you go to medicine, you go to engineering, you go everywhere else, you find the poor not is being sacrificed in the street by some thugs in blue in the name of the police officers, but the poor are being alienated from resources. Remember, every privatization that has taken place in this country has actually injured the poor person. So if you go to the universities, you find there is an intellectual bankruptcy. They are writing papers to defeat, poverty. They are writing papers to interpret how to fight corruption. Well, we can remember that the university, particularly the University of Nairobi, were having lecturers that were at the forefront of organizing for resistance against Moi dictatorship and corruption in this country. And a few of them, like Ngugi wa Thiong'o, were arrested. You remember even others that were in the Department of Literature, the Department of History, and they were fighting literally at the forefront. But now even look at the Department of Political Science. You can particularly guess what they are going to analyze the political environment, depending on their tribal affiliation or the affiliation to the barons. Either if you see, for example, another professor from political science and is aligned to Jubilee, you can remember what he's going to say. If he's aligned to, the barons on the ODM side or the other wings of shades of political party, you can actually tell that they are going to say what to favor their political establishment. So I hope that my younger comrades here will redeem the universities to become less reactionary and accept intellectualism. The third is, why are we poor? Every time I walk and meet people here in the street, some people want us to believe that we are poor because we are not working hard. Even you journalists, you work so hard, but at the end of the day, it's a vicious circle. You will still be struggling with rent, you will be struggling with your families to feed, you will even be undignified because people think that collecting funerals is dignity, that you cannot even bury your people because you are poor. So you actually even contribute money to go and collect your dead ones in the hospital because the private healthcare system has actually charged them $1 million bob to collect a dead body. So we are going to actually demand here as the fourth liberation for the nationalization of our healthcare system, for the nationalization of our education system, and all the basic things, even things like water. How can we be paying basic items like water, food, when somebody has $1 billion bob in the account and somebody has nothing? That can only increase the level of inequality among our people. So what we are telling the Kenyan people, that they should know that they are not rich because their grandmothers and their fathers and their mothers did not steal for them. If they had, born in a family of thieves, because you cannot convince me that Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta worked so hard. Kama baba yake hakuwa mtapeli kuuza independence, then he will have not inherited all this land. He will not have inherited a big empire. We can remember the Moi's children have been left for $1 billion bob. So when people are poor, it is because they have not stolen. But the system, the neo-colonial system state that exists today, actually favors the rich more than the poor people. And then lastly, comrades, we came here to tell the Kenyan people that we have seen the oppressors regrouping. The other time we saw them forming alliances of operation to maintain status quo. We have seen coalitions around the opposition, the so-called opposition leader, Mr. Odinga. We have also seen some gimmicks of somebody who actually, Mr. Kenyatta, his time is up. In fact, next year is off to Gatundu. He should not be interfering with our affairs here unless he wants to come through the back door, through a document of fraud, BBI. BBI, when there was a fight for comrades, when there was a fight, and I was there, when there was a fight for stolen elections in this country, or the so-called stolen elections, poor people were murdered in this street. In Kisumu, poor people were murdered. In Migori, poor people were murdered. Now, after the handshake, even the people who were murdered by the state or the so-called militias from the opposition strengths, their names have not been written. And what we are saying, that we cannot get the dead from the grave. But if BBI was a genuine document, then they should have set out funds, money, to pay the people that they lost their loved ones when they were fighting for this democratic or the so-called stolen elections. But we have seen only privileges for Raila and his henchmen, running around this country and telling us that, the BBI will actually bring anything. The second thing is the amount of money that has been spent on that silly document. Almost billions of money are being spent on a document of fraud. And then unnecessary threats from the head of state to the judiciary. What if you have nothing to hide? Then why are you threatening anyone? Why don't you just sit? Because we know for a fact that the Kenyan people elected their leaders to give them service.